All right. Thank you for joining in on our first podcast. This is David Wilkins with Bright Futures, and I'm also here with Oez Nanye and Shay Webster, both my colleagues at Bright Futures. And we have some amazing teachers from the state of Texas with us on the phone. We have Miss Kelly Lugo. We also have Miss Diamond Wilson and Miss Meredith Wise. How you guys doing today?
Wonderful, thanks.
Great. Hey, Meredith, you want to give us a quick intro of who you are?
Yeah, again, my name is Meredith Wise, and I'm a teacher south of Houston at a high school, and I work in the Career and Technology Education Department, and I also work as an I-coach, which is a technology coach working with other teachers and integrating technology in their classroom.
Awesome. Well, how about let's go to Miss Kelly Lugo.
Hi, again, my name is Kelly Lugo, and I am a high school business education and avid teacher in North Texas. I've actually only been teaching for about 2 years now. My background is actually in collegiate and professional sports marketing and digital marketing project management. So I'm really excited to be here today.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, and we're excited to have you as well. Then I also want to give my partner Oez a few seconds. How you doing, man?
All right, I'm doing great. First of all, thank you everyone for being here. And you're all a part of something that's so very special in this time and age. Where we're, like David said earlier, helping teachers, having them help us define the problem. And some of the issues and challenges that are faced in high schools today is, I believe, the first step. And, Bright Futures with Dave's involvement over the last 3 and 4 years because of what he does with working with teachers and students, he has developed great insight into a lot of these things by talking to a lot of teachers. But, again, to have you here with us, helping us define the challenges and issues is the first step for any organization to address those issues effectively. So I want to thank you all very much from the bottom of my heart for being here with us, and we look forward to our discussion here that's about to start.
Awesome. Just give you a quick scenario of what I've done here in Texas recently in the last 2 to 3 years. Have really been at the point of working with students and their college access information in terms of what colleges to go to, what careers to pick. And then also have been able to hear a lot of the different unique programs that Texas has to offer. The career technical department that is set up amazingly that both you guys are a part of, which would be really cool to hear from your perspective. But we're going to talk about a couple different areas today in terms of motivation, career prep, negative influences that might be in the classroom, universal success principles that are taught, and regardless of what the specific topic you're teaching, and then just relevance to real-world application. You think it's lacking or is it right on or what have you. So we'll start with that. With the topic of motivation, what do you guys think are some of the real issues around motivating students in the classroom? What do you guys experience?
Well, this is Kelly. I'll jump in with the one that's been most surprising to me, and that is that students seem to have little interest in learning what they can look up at their phones if they ever need it.
Yeah.
So the motivation challenge there is, how do I get them to want to learn this today as opposed to, 5 years from now if somebody asks them about it.
Right. Huh.
Yeah, that's a great observation, Kelly, and I think that's true for them, and it's true for me. Personally, as an adult, I'm not going to commit something to memory that I have to go look up. And how when ask that question of what's the problem with kids' motivation in class, is it's all about creating relevance and the need to know. Mm-hmm. Why do they need to know that? And the real challenge that I see in my classroom but more so like, and other teachers and report, them reporting their frustration. Our district had this big project-based learning, push, like initiative. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, I'm sure you're probably aware of that. Absolutely. Project-based learning and, coming from industry that, that's probably how you would naturally do things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the real problem that I've heard with that is you're stuck between, as a teacher, creating these fun, relevant projects and still being held to the requirements of teaching the test.
Ah, gotcha.
Right. It's a fine line, Meredith. That is a key point, I think, in this whole discussion, is they really are kind of trapped in teaching toward the test and making sure everybody is on track for that, whatever the test may be. I know it varies from place to place, but it's out there. And you lose a lot of freedom and creativity to focus on how to make things relevant and how to differentiate things, and because you're really just worried about, are we getting to this material? And there's so much material that you have to keep a pretty brisk pace, from what I'm understanding from all the core teachers.
Huh. That's a great perception. That's a great perception. So what do you think on, even from the teacher's perspective of designing the curriculum to match the TEKS and to match the topics that are being tested, but even with the crazy amount of technology that is in front of these kids now, and having to deal with that motivation still, what do you think the barrier is in them understanding that learning this foundation will apply to being a game designer in the future, or being a web designer, or
right, whatever it is. I know it can be done. It's just really hard. There is a teacher at my campus. She's just fantastic, and she taught AP courses. And AP courses, you are really set to the curriculum, like you have to get the material for your kids, pass the test, and everything. She did it very project-based, and she had higher scores than her fellow teachers who didn't. So I know it can be done, but it looks like an impossible task in the beginning. Like, great, I am not even getting through, the park and mark and, the lecture style stuff. It's just sheer, information dissemination. I don't have time to do this, groovy project that's going to take, 2 weeks and involve the community and, have a little, circle time and all this other business. I don't have time for that. But if it's done right, it'll actually work out. It does actually work out. And if you wind up flipping the classroom, and that's been kind of the answer to the time crunch. We don't have all time for all this enrichment. Let's flip the classroom.
Go ahead and give us.
Yeah,
go ahead and give us a quick definition of what flipping the classroom is.
Flipping the classroom is where instead of here, let me teach you all the information in class, go home and practice. Mm-hmm. It's flipping that. It's in the classroom, assigning short lecture, podcast, something, article to read. Do that, get all of the nuts and bolts at home, mm-hmm. And then come back and then do that enriching the practice the guided practice in the classroom, and more enrichment, hopefully relevant, activity.
Okay. Sounds good. So that's a new initiative that people are, trying to do in the classroom. So what do you guys, let's think about our most challenging students that we have in the classroom. How do you turn their motivation, or what are ways that you've approached students like that in being, successful in turning that motivation?
This is one of the things I'd like to hop in on kind of on the last topic of motivation. I think that I'm a language teacher, French and Spanish, and one of the things that I think is so important about being able to test at the end of a certain amount of time is the idea that it builds on top of the information that you've already learned. And one of the things that's difficult about keeping kids motivated is, they want to do it all in one day, or as I think it was Meredith Wise said, 5 years in the future when I need this. And I think part of the motivating that we have to do as teachers is show them, hey, you know what, between yesterday and today, here's how much you've grown. This is what you can do now. 2 weeks ago, you wouldn't have been able to do these things. And I think that helps to give them that motivation. It's very much like going to the gym. We'd all like to lose 20 pounds tomorrow at the gym. And it just doesn't work that way. And so we have to celebrate the little successes. And I think what you ladies are talking about, the projects that can be fun and that take all of this time, they're difficult to put in there. But maybe that is why there's a success. They're shown with people who are able to figure out the time frame to get those projects into the classroom and get the students involved. Because when you start taking ownership of your learning and ownership of the knowledge that you have and what you still need, what you're lacking, then maybe we can up that motivation a little bit. And it's certainly difficult. It's a difficult challenge that what you do today is going to pay off in 6 months.
Yeah.
And I think technology, goes right into that because, and I love your dieting analogy because, that's something that everybody can, relate to. It's like, okay, everybody can, I hope, to, lose 10 pounds, but you're not going to do that without a plan. And there are so many tools now that help with diagnostics, with how to help with, cheering people on and celebrating those little successes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is Kelly. You guys are both touching on kind of what I was going to throw out there in response to the question of, motivation. And Simon, you mentioned celebrating the successes, and Meredith, you were touching on the same thing. And it's celebrating those little successes and attaching them to that long-term dream. And going back to those challenging students, the ones that I hear about the greatest kind of turnaround, it's the students where a teacher took the time to see past behavior issues or to see past failure to turn in assignments and actually took that student aside and said, what's going on? Took the time to get to know what's going on at home, what are your challenges, what do you think you can't do, and let's figure out what resources are here that can help you.
That's excellent.
I've seen students that thought they were hopeless. They were never going to do anything, and they were rappers in their free time. And it turned out they're really good at writers.
Yeah.
And nobody had nurtured that. And once they realized, hey, I'm a writer, suddenly there's hope and excitement about the future, even if it's baby steps, even if it's hard for them to really see, even past community college, they are starting to see out there and celebrating what their gifts are and what their little successes are, and then attaching it to that long-term dream, I think is huge as far as motivation.
That's great. I'm glad you mentioned that. And
that was great.
Yeah, I think connecting with the student and having that personal relationship beyond the actual curriculum or the specific projects is really key. And I just tip my hat to you guys that deal with it each and every day, that you're not only dealing with teaching the curriculum, you're dealing with the social issues that they bring in the classroom, you're dealing with the family issues that they bring in the classroom, and you're able to manage it and do it well. So that's awesome. We mentioned, and I think Diamond mentioned earlier about really the understanding the relevance of how it plays out in the real world, what that day-to-day job looks like, in that environment. What do you guys think the curriculum right now and how it stands? Does it represent well the real world, or is there a gap in understanding from the high school seniors' perspective? Before they're getting ready to graduate, do they have all the information to truly be successful out there in the real world? What do you guys think?
This is Kelly. The biggest gap I'm seeing so far, not being that far from the rest of the real world outside of education, is the gap in the soft skills. no matter what job they go into, they're going to need to be able to communicate and handle conflict and deal with risk and make career choices and network. And in most of the career classes that I've seen, we're not including that. We're focusing on the job function, not on kind of the universal skills that they'll need to be successful no matter where they go. And I know we don't really have time to address that in our core classes either. So that, to me, is where the biggest gap is.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that's a big issue.
Yeah.
With what Kelly was saying with the soft skills, and what those another category for those soft skills is this 21st century learning. Like, what does that look like? And it's what I can't remember. It's like 3D, like communication, collaboration, and all of those kinds of skills that aren't necessarily testable, and they're not necessarily mandated in any one curriculum. But without them, I don't care what you know, you're not going to do what you hope to do.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that goes back to like what you ladies were saying about the testing as well. When there's such a huge emphasis on the material, it is difficult for us to manage teaching the kids the information that they need, while at the same time teaching them the life skills that are difficult. Some of these soft skills that are difficult to test. How do you measure politeness? How do you measure the capacity to work in a team? You just don't get a score. You can't get an 80% on that, and yet it is so important. And I feel like in my classroom teaching language, I've had the opportunity to work on some of those things, and I get to make jokes about it. Hey, you don't want your waiter or your server in Europe to spit in your food. Make sure you use the I would like form rather than give me now. And they laugh, but that's actually an opportunity that I have to work on the importance of, hey, we're a community here. And the way that I treat you in the classroom might be the way that you treat me in the emergency room in 10 years. And I'm very aware of that connection that we have. I think it's extremely important to teach them, the way that the world is interconnected. So in such a small, really by small proportions.
That's great. Hey, Oaz, were you going to chime in and say something a few minutes ago?
Yeah, no, thank you, Dave. I was going to respond to that comment that you made earlier, and that message of hope. I look at my own life. I was a student not too long ago. Me and Dave, by the way, just so you know, we met in college, and I think back to my days in high school, and I wasn't always a good student. I might have almost been what one would have called a challenging student, but I can clearly remember the time when things really turned around for me. And I think as teachers, I had just such a deep admiration and respect for this profession, because in my own life, I was able to reach a point where, that message of hope, and just letting kids know that even the ones who are struggling, that they really do have inside them everything they would ever need to live and create a fulfilling and successful life. And that belief and that letting them know, the example that you gave of the kids who are into rapping, and you're telling them they're good writers. That's exactly, that's the kind of hope, the message of hope that you mean to say, I can do this, really? And when that happens, I think that's a key point in a student's life for those who are struggling. And also, if I can comment on the soft skills. Me and Dave recently had a discussion with Erica, who teaches at, I'm sorry, it escapes me. Dave, she teaches at...
She's in one of the North Texas high schools. Yeah.
North Texas, thank you. Mm-hmm. North Texas high school. And we were talking to her about some of the challenges she was having. And one of the things she told me about was relevance. She had a course where she was trying to teach, the soft skills, the interpersonal skills, whatever you want to call it. It's such an important part of life. And, and I asked her what her challenge was in teaching those things. And she said, well, the students really couldn't see how they could use this, how it's relevant. And I kid you not, I almost fell off my chair, and I've been in business for myself pretty much all my life. And I would say, aside from, your basic foundational skills that you do get from your primary education, those learning how to navigate in this, as far as interpersonal skills goes, the soft skills goes, it just goes such a long way, because at the end of the day, it's all people. That's it. Nothing else. It's people. You're working with people, and learning how to work with them is one of the greatest things that can help anyone in their career. And so those are all just excellent observations. I think you'll really hit the nail on the head on that one. And thank you.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Well, back to your question about the gap. One of the big gaps that I keep seeing is the belief that anything related to career prep seems to be only geared towards kids who would be labeled as lower performers, or just to the kids who don't seem to know what they want to do. And what I've seen is that if we could make the time somehow in everyone's schedule to really put more of a focus on career planning and career preparation, the likelihood of the students ending up in those fulfilling jobs as opposed to what mom and dad want them to do, or as opposed to what they thought they wanted to do, I think would just skyrocket. Some of my honor students that have taken a class where they are planning out their future and looking at what are my values and my interests and my skills. I had one girl go from thinking she absolutely wanted to be an orthodontist, and she was just taking the class to figure out which school, to completely changing gears, realizing she didn't want to look in people's mouths all day. She hadn't thought about that. She just thought about, hey, I'll be in an office, I'll make good money, it should be, pretty easy. But once she really took a deep dive on that career, she realized this is not what I want to do. And she's now, headed off to a great school. She's going to focus on marketing, and she's super excited. And she just saved her parents, $50,000 in, changing gears a few years into college because she took the time to look at it. So that's the gap, is how do we let people know career prep, career planning for everybody, not just the kids without a plan.
Exactly. I think you hit it right on the head. I mean, we've done a great job in Texas in terms of providing that career and technical training and those programs, which are immaculate and probably setting precedent, across the nation. But at the same time, a lot of those students that are on that AP track or on that regular curriculum, that they don't really show an interest at an early age, they are kind of left in, I understand what engineering is, I understand what being a lawyer is, and a doctor, kind of those general groupings. But it's amazing how many unique job descriptions are out there, and unique jobs and opportunities that are out there in this 21st century. And it's a global economy now. So we definitely are doing an injustice to our students if we're not, breaking down what this cool opportunity even looks like. Well, we'll move on to the next one. And I think this is probably a pretty big area. Let's just talk about the negative influences that will plague the classroom. What do students bring in the classroom that are distractions, or what are the biggest things that you guys are seeing, being able to get successfully through to your students?
I think about that a lot, and I have lately, is being in the teenage mind, and especially at the high school level, where I love my classes, and I'm ready, and I have a lesson plan, and I am just 100% focused on what we have to do today. And something that I think I'm increasingly aware of is they do not come into the classroom, as tabula rasa, that these blank slates. They have, all of these things, these social things going on. And I think, and I'm a real, a technology person, but that, and when they come into the door in my classroom, they are still bringing all of those conversations, he said, she said, drama, because it's right at their fingertips.
Yeah.
Like, those conversations used to at least end in the hallway, and they're not ending. Does anybody else find that to be true?
Absolutely. As much as we're encouraging integration of technology into the classroom, it also means bringing with it the drama happening on social media.
Right. Other than the technology component, are students dealing with a lot of relationship issues that, is a negative, big distraction?
Absolutely. I think there's kind of a wide breadth of issues across the board that students are facing just in their own homes.
Mm-hmm.
So many broken homes, so many complicated family situations,
Mm-hmm.
so many students who are with mom in one city for a few days and then with dad in another city for a few days and not feeling settled. The family situations, I think, are extremely challenging for the students, more than they ever have been. Maybe mom's in one country and dad's in one country. It's just very different than it looked even 20 years ago.
Yeah. Those are all good points. You guys have any other negative influencers that these students are facing and bringing in your classroom?
Well, I think, one of the things that's interesting when we're talking about kids and their brain development and how those stages kind of work as they grow and as they mature. As adults, we've learned and we've developed that there are some things we need to leave at home and some things that we're allowed to bring to the classroom with us. We learn to distinguish between information and experiences that are going to be helpful for our learning versus ones that are going to be detrimental. And kids haven't developed their filter as well, by that stage. Their brain is still happening. And so sometimes I think it's important. I don't remember, was it Kelly who may have mentioned, finding out what's going on at home, giving the kids like, hey, I understand that this is what's on your mind, this breakup, this family situation, this divorce, this argument with your best friend, this video of you showing up on YouTube, whatever it is, let's talk about that. Let's deal with it so that we can move on. Because kids, we can't expect kids to be like adults. They don't have that development yet. They still have that very strong, affective filter that's ruling them. And if we can be like, deal with this issue, it's done, let's close the door on that and move to something else, rather than being like, let's talk about that later, let's deal with that at home, they're not going to be able to do that. So as you said, there's a lot of parenting and a lot of counseling and a lot of relationship building with the kids in order to be able to work them through those things and talk about it and make them feel guided and cared for so that they can move on to the next topic.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah. And as adults, we also have learned through time and making our own mistakes that there's going to be something good to come from that challenge. It may not feel like it at the moment, but there will be something down the road that there's a way that you've grown that you're going to benefit from what you're facing. And most of them haven't heard that message. And it's been really interesting to get to know the kids' stories. And then when it comes time to tell their story for scholarship essays or college application essays, because you know so much about them and what they've gone through, you can really help them spin the experience into, this is the life lesson that I've learned, and this is how I've become who I am, and how I'm going to use this to make my school better, my community better. And again, going back to that word of hope, it gives them hope when they know, okay, here's what I can do with this to make something positive. It empowers them and makes them kind of creators of solutions instead of victims of their circumstances.
Right. That's good.
Mm-hmm. Problem solving. Yes, that's another 21st century skill. That's another soft skill, so to speak, that is in really high demand. My colleague and I laugh about this all of the time, and this is another challenge of those little barriers that will stop students in their tracks. We'll follow up with them and say, hey, how's that project going? Oh, well, I had, the computer wouldn't turn on, and this is like 20 minutes into class. And we laugh about it, and we know some of that's a delay tactic, but the other thing is it's just sheer problem solving, just being working in the solution instead of staying in the problem. And I don't know if other teachers have that, have that observation, but we laugh about it because it's just sometimes to the point, like, it's ridiculous.
The lack of taking ownership of solving that problem yourself, as opposed to somebody come handle it for me, or I'll just sit here until somebody sees that my computer's not on. So that's great. Conversation's been going great so far. Do you guys have any other challenges you have? Maybe it's resources, maybe it's working in the school districts, and we don't want to get too detailed by any means, but just are there any of those back end things that you guys are dealing with that are making it hard for you to do your job?
I have one that's probably just more of a conversation starter, is teachers, and that has to do with my job as a technology coach, is teachers, embracing technology and how they feel about that need to embrace technology. Some teachers are, just ready and willing and out there and ready to do it, and others, have a lot of fear and stress and anxiety built up about what they should, be doing with technology.
So do you feel, is it like a 50-50 split, or are we talking about 70-30?
I wish it was 50-50.
Yeah.
I don't know. Other teachers, what are your observations?
Yeah, I've seen this. This is Kelly. I've seen the same thing, and I think 50% are very resistant to it, and probably the other 50% are super excited about it and have no time to use what they've learned in training. So they don't. We've gone to training for Moodle, and we've gone to training for Prezi, and we've gone to training for QR codes, and a list of countless other things. There's been a huge push for technology training for teachers, and it's required a certain number of hours every year. But then finding the time to sit down and play with it and figure out how you could use it in your classroom has been a really big challenge.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah, I agree with you. It seems like there's an extreme. It's hard to find people in the middle who are like, you know what? X, Y, and Z will work in my classroom. Let's quietly use them and go about our own business implementing technology. But you're so anti or so pro. And, I have a master's degree that focused on technology use in the classroom, and one of the things that they cautioned us on was the novelty effect. And I'm kind of interested, ladies, what your perception is on the technology that we have is amazing and it's beautiful and it's changing. Are our classrooms really set up at this point to be able to utilize all of the stuff that we have at our fingertips? And if they aren't, how much money does it cost, and how much time and curriculum changes does it cost to implement even a couple of small pieces of technology? I'm interested in your take on that. Yeah, that's something. I work in a computer lab. I always have worked in a computer lab, so that's just been a matter of course, for me. And when I got in other teachers' classrooms, I was really, taken aback with just how challenging that is. If you're not in a one-to-one district, I certainly am not, where yes, I have access to a computer labs, but, real, boots on the ground, real rural, everyday stuff, that doesn't really work that great, just with logistics. You have to book it, see if it's going to work with my lesson plan, and there's just all kinds of hindrances there. And I think technology can't be like a little whistle and bell. It really has to be changing the way that you teach in order for it to be effective. Otherwise, we're doing the same old thing that we always did, with just a little icing on the top, and it's not going to make a difference. Yeah,
I agree with that.
I thought the same thing. I too wants to be in a classroom full of computers, one for every student, and I've often thought, how do people do this and do this well without access to this?
Yeah. The training that you guys do get, how easy is it to implement in that next year? Of how much of it is translating into the classroom?
This is Kelly. I would say that it varies a little bit.
So, for example, last year, a lot of teachers were attending Prezi training, and with the hopes, I think, that teachers would shift from Prezi to PowerPoint. But what that means is that teachers that have been teaching for a long time have to go back and rebuild all the stuff they already have. So a lot of them are resistant to that, thinking, well, I don't have time to do all that. So I think there's a fear among teachers that they have to change everything once they go to these trainings or nothing. The mindset doesn't seem to be there that, hey, maybe next time I create a lesson, I could do it with this technology instead of reworking everything I already have.
Right.
And that's been my discovery, and that is a big question. That's like, if I were to frame a challenge for this next year, it would be that. And I have never known everything about what I'm teaching. I never have. And so I'm really comfortable not knowing. And I've realized that teachers we are a bunch of control freaks. I've assigned so many Prezis, but I've never really taught it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a misconception. And then the other thing, Prezi is a whistle and bell. Let's just call it. Mostly, if teachers are just using it for PowerPoint, it's just a PowerPoint with fancy moves.
Yeah.
Where Prezi gets powerful is when you're collaborating. When you're sharing it with other students, with other teachers and with other students. But just converting your use of PowerPoint, there's nothing wrong with the PowerPoint. Exactly what my next point was going to be, and that is a lot of teachers feel like the approach changes year to year. So what's the point of learning this approach? It's going to be something totally different next year.
Wow, that's a good point. Huh. So it's a constantly changing.
Like, oh, this is the way this is bad.
Yeah, it's a constantly changing environment, it seems.
Right, and it's not just technology. It's what's our approach to education this year. They even feel like it's changing, and that's a big one that I've heard from teachers. To take it and make it work. I have from my personal experience, I was very excited to incorporate some technology into my classroom with some online classes and some, ability to collaborate and share information online. And I was told from my district, sorry, we're not going to allow you to use Moodle, for example, because we don't have the space on the server to do it. And it's like, okay, so why did I go to this training and get set up to do something that isn't going to be usable, that I can't use because we don't have the space for it? And that gets disheartening. Like you said, when there's always something new that's coming up and you're excited to try this, try that, try the other thing. And then, I wasn't able to get my kids in a computer lab last year at all. Because and I wasn't able to get iPads. We have iPads in our school, but I'm not allowed to use them because I'm not in science or math. That's sad and it's disheartening. It's like, you know what? Let me get some colored chalk because I guess that's what I have to work with. So why dedicate your time from a teacher's perspective into learning and trying and designing all of these new things when you revamp so much of your style only to be told, hey, you're not going to be able to realistically put this into use.
Huh. That's
a great point.
That is a huge point.
Along with the resources kind of feeding the funnel in the direction that is focused on building kids up for the test, it's kind of the same thing for the students and going back to those negative influences. When they are really talented in one area, but it's not an area that's going to be on the test, they don't get to spend much time there. So they may have time for one semester-long elective in something that is going to be their thing. It's going to be what they do, but because they have to take so many science classes and so many math classes, and which is focused in an area that's not their gift. Yes, thankfully. But I still don't know that it'll shift to the point where the kids who are going to be the best mechanics in the world get to spend the bulk of their time really getting ready for that.
Yeah. Are the AP classes getting more of a priority? Are they getting access to the iPads and the other programs not? Like, is it is it balanced where kids are all getting the same opportunity to be in front of technology, or is it a certain category of kids are missing out on technology pieces because they're not in certain programs?
I would definitely, this is Diane, I would definitely say from my experience, I have always taught regulars, and in the AP classrooms, the teachers have a classroom if they teach AP, and I don't, so I didn't, and I'm no longer employed there. The AP teachers have certain, software and actually like labs that got installed into their classrooms that were useful for language speaking, etc. Obviously, important in there. And so also they were able to get buses paid for the school to take their kids on field trips, which is something that I was denied as well. So from my perspective, it's not even close to the same opportunities for our kids.
Okay, that's a good point.
I feel like any request that I have made, and I haven't made that many of them, kind of not knowing exactly what I can ask for and what I can't just yet, but the ones that I have made where I needed a video camera or I needed something upgraded so that we could have Skype conversations with professionals out in the real world instead of the kids just reading things online. Those types of requests have been well received so far, and that may be because our district just in the last year has changed gears to say it's part of to focus on career preparation. Maybe I just got here at a good time, but so far my requests have been pretty well received because of other people in the career and technology area. This is Kelly. I would say kind of tying back to motivation and tying back to attaching them to a long-term dream. A big challenge is the cost of post-secondary education and fears that a lot of these students have of drowning in student debt, not being able to find a job when they get out. Helping them find the solutions for that. Back to the problem solving, all of this is definitely connected. But it's the challenge of making them believe they can do what they want to do when they get out of here, even if it seems like a financial risk to go after it.
Yeah. Well, so let's end it on this. I know we've almost spent an hour on the phone. I really, really appreciate your time, guys. If you guys had one wish going into the next year, or something that you would like to help change or see changed, what do you think you would pick?
This is Kelly. I think my one wish would be that every student would be encouraged to take a career planning course so that they could find purpose in everything else they're doing in school.
Okay.
Mine is, going back to the challenge, is that teachers will embrace technology a little easier. Not that they're going to use it anymore, but that their stress level will go down about it. Yes, I guess that mine is, having the opportunity to work with the kids that are showing certain other initiatives and having programs that allow them to interact with the teachers and get the help that they need. I had the opportunity to be a part of a program that offered services on Saturdays for the kids, for anyone who wanted to come, and they could get help with their core classes. We had teachers that were available to help them find scholarships and practice for their ACTs and SATs that they were interested in. And I guess that is my wish, is that that type of program continue to be encouraged, where we get the students who maybe aren't part of a special program, or maybe they aren't involved in a lot of things, but if they're willing to show up, we have people that are actually able to give them answers and sit down and work with them, one teacher to 3 or 4 kids and on a Saturday. I think that's beautiful, so I hope they're involved in something like that for this coming year as well.
That's great. That's a great idea. Those are all great wishes, and my wish is the same. I just hope that we can connect the dots for these students, get them all charged up for some kind of career path, letting them see what this world has to offer. And I think we're on our way to getting there. So, but thank you guys so much for spending your time with Bright Futures. And I know Oaz probably has some closing words, so I'll give it over to him real quick.
All right. Invaluable. It's invaluable. And thank you so much for sharing your insights. And this is what it's all about, is just defining what it is we're trying to find solutions for. You mentioned problem solving, and I would say that's probably the first step. Just having a clear definition of what are some of the challenges and how do we compensate for that, come up with creative solutions to address those issues. And they can be addressed. Most teachers are doing their very best to address them on a daily basis. And I feel like all that's needed is just more resources to kind of magnify what they're already doing. And I can't thank you enough for spending time with us.
All right.
Thank you. It's great. Yeah, thank you guys. It's great to have you.
That's our goal, and I appreciate it. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and I'll be talking to you soon.